If buying a home in Sioux Falls feels overwhelming right now, you're definitely not alone. For most families, life is already full. We're working full-time, running kids to activities, taking care of the home, and then to add on to it, thinking about if right now is really the right time to make a move. I actually put together a helpful guide. The link is in the description below. It's called When Not to Buy a Home in Sioux Falls. Because honestly, there are times when it does make sense to wait. So you want to make sure you're making the smart move. After helping families here in Sioux Falls navigate this exact decision, the timing is almost never perfect. That part is normal, but what matters more is knowing when to recognize that making the move is the smart thing to do anyways. So let's talk through the 5 things that keep people stuck. And honestly, let's make sure that they are real obstacles and not just fear that's holding you back. So number 1 is actually feeling overwhelmed by the whole process. Believe me, when you take it all in one big chunk and you think about all of the things that go into buying and selling a home, it can be completely overwhelming. When you think about getting the house ready, getting it priced right, making sure that showings go well, get the cats and dogs and kids out of the house for showings. How do you keep it clean with the busy schedules? Then going out and finding your own home, getting through inspections and appraisal and all of the things. Believe me, there's a lot that goes into it and the stress is totally real. And I can completely understand that selling a home feels stressful, but I'm gonna help you think about it as a metaphor. So if you think about changing a tire on a car while it's still moving, that's pretty impossible, right? But if you slow down and take your time and go step by step in changing that tire, it's totally doable. Same goes with buying and selling a home. You have to take the process in bite-sized pieces so that it doesn't feel so overwhelming. What this means for you is that if you've been telling yourself that the timing just isn't right and you don't have the capacity for this, it might not be a timing thing. It might be that you need someone to take your hand and walk you through each of the steps one by one and see how it can actually fit into your life and lifestyle. Because once you do that, it doesn't seem all that overwhelming. And that connects directly to the second thing I see. A lot of families just stay put because they've gotten really good at making the house that they live in work for them. Yes, you can definitely find more storage solutions for all of those extra shoes. And sure, if you keep that pantry super organized, it might make it a little bit more functional. But honestly, how long is it actually going to stay that way? So just because you can make it work doesn't mean that the home is actually working for you and how your family lives day to day. So I recently started working with a local baseball family here with 2 growing boys. And even though the home they were in worked okay, it wasn't really the location and it wasn't functioning the way they wanted it to for their growing family. So they had the decision to make whether they could make it work in this house and put more money into it to make it the house they wanted, or should they look into buying or building something new. So interesting enough, buyers have one regret that I see more often than not is that they buy a home that is too small. Not too big, but too small. So if you're constantly working around a home that should truly be working for you, the frustration is real. And it's not selfish to want a home that makes your lifestyle easier. But even when people realize that, they still let one other thing get in the way. So the number 3 thing that I see is that people don't quite understand what's really happening here in our local market. Look, I'm never going to push somebody into making a decision to buy if it's not right for them or their family. But waiting by default could be costing you a great house for a great value. So here's what we know. Home prices here in Sioux Falls have continued to rise. As nationally, they've started to flatline a little bit, we're still seeing some great equity growth here in our market. We're also seeing that building has slowed down a touch, which means that our inventory levels may continue to go down. So it's the true economics of supply and demand. Housing prices are going to continue to rise as inventories continue to decrease. And so I think that continuing to wait might not be the right decision for you and your family when it comes to timing the market. So yes, of course, interest rates matter, monthly payments matter, savings matter, but supply is something that we don't talk about enough. And sometimes what people think is the safer choice, waiting, can actually cost them more in the long run. Maybe prices continue to go up, maybe inventory continues to go down, and maybe the home that you're trying to find, it becomes harder to put your hands on. So if you're going to wait, make sure it's an intentional decision, not something made out of fear. Which actually brings me to the fourth point, which is interest rates. This one is huge right now, and I think it will continue to be a part of the conversation. But getting hung up on the rate that you have now is not looking at the big picture. Remember that baseball family that I told you about just a bit ago? They were pretty hung up on the fact that they had a 2.5% interest rate. That sounds pretty appealing, but they had student loans, they had car debt, they had other things. So when we looked at the big picture, we were actually able to see that by using the equity that they had in their current home, they were able to wipe out some of those monthly obligations to make that monthly payment be pretty similar to what they're paying right now. The result for this family is that they're building a home that fits their family so much better than their last house. With a better location, a better layout, and space for their family to grow, this home is going to be absolutely beautiful, and it's going to fit their family for years and years to come. So not getting hung up on the interest rate is kind of a big deal. So what you don't want to do is just compare mortgage payments. You want to look at your whole big scope picture of all of your financial obligations and find out if it makes more sense. But even when all of the numbers make sense, there's one more thing that stops families from making this big decision. That number 5 is the feeling of guilt. A lot of people will feel guilty about wanting to upgrade their home when they actually have a home that works just fine for them now. But here's what I want you to hear, that wanting a space that's functional and practical for you and your family, it's not selfish, it just makes sense. It can make your life so much less stressful and have everyday things flow so much easier. So I know it's hard to get over that guilt and that feeling of being selfish, but once you put that aside and see how this home could potentially function for you and your family and how much happier and stress-free you'll be with organization and space and a layout that makes sense for you and your family, I think that you'll understand that it's worth taking that risk. At the end of the day, the families that feel really good about making that move are the ones that didn't wait for everything to feel perfect. They're the ones who got honest about what was and wasn't working in their current home, what they could afford financially and making sure the numbers jived, and then what they truly needed in that next space to make sure that it was functional and worked well for their family long term. You could be just like that baseball family who went from feeling stuck to feeling like they could build a home that really made sense for their family and their future. Because we looked at the full picture, not just an interest rate, but the whole financial picture all together. And if you want to make sure that you're educated about what's really going on in today's Sioux Falls market, then make sure you check out this next video and the link above. Hit the like and subscribe button, send this to a friend that you think it would be helpful for, and I hope to see you in the next video.